So we are going to discuss this month group training, midlife women. So when you have 10 or 20 women in a room and they are all between the ages of 35 and 65, there is a sort of different life experience for this population that requires a different approach as their personal trainer. So this topic came about because I was emailed a question, and the question was, I'm wondering if you can provide me some insight. I find it quite a challenge to deliver a group fitness class to midlife women when pretty much every woman in the class has a different problem. One woman has frozen shoulder, the other has pelvic floor dysfunction, the other plantar fasciitis, back pain, lots of inflammation in the hip. It goes on and on. How do I train these women without someone getting injured in the process? So firstly, we're going to touch on what is happening to these women in this phase of life. So number one, they're in the care sandwich. So they've got aging parents plus young or teenage children. They're sometimes also got a paid job on top of that. They're also still doing the lion's share of the homework, housework on top of that. And this makes them time poor. So when someone is time poor, the first thing to go is their self-care. They have less time for physio. They have less time for their rehab and doing their exercises. They have less time for foam rolling. They have less time for eating well. You name it, there's less, okay? Number two, they're perimenopausal. So perimenopause can last 13 years. Menopause itself is just one day when you've been without your period for 12 months. But the 13 years preceding that and up to 5 years post-menopause, you've got these hormonal fluctuations. It means your estrogen and progesterone levels are all over the shop, but ultimately on their way down. Now, estrogen and progesterone act on all tissues of the body. They don't just act on your reproductive organs. So there's brain symptoms, there's digestion symptoms, and there is muscle, bone, and joint symptoms. It's called the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, okay? It can affect a woman's stability, their mobility, their coordination. On any given day, she could be wobblier than usual or tighter than usual. And it will affect her ability in the session. Now, what also affects them is fear. So, like I did a story yesterday or the day before where, you know, I turned 40 and randomly started getting injured. Like I did 6 push-ups. You know, I've been doing push-ups for 30 years. I did 6 one day. The next day, couldn't use my shoulder, couldn't lie on it, couldn't lift a saucepan. It affected my life. So now I do push-ups. I'm a little bit scared. And that has a physical effect as well as a mental effect. So, you know, even if the client isn't injured in this group environment, they may be fearful of getting injured. So that's another factor we need to think about in our group session. There are consequences to these symptoms. So if she's getting hot flashes and insomnia, that will also affect her ability to move well and train well. It'll also affect, you know, how she eats because, you know, sleep affects blood sugar, sleep affects your cravings, sleep affects cortisol levels, cortisol affects blood sugar. It's massive, massive, tumultuous hormonal cycle happening in this age. Now, she might be post-menopausal, which means she has to get used to a new body, right? You know, estrogen impacts ligament laxity. So when you're getting used to a body that no longer has lots of estrogen, then you'll be tighter than usual. You might be more susceptible to sprains or tears or tendinitises. Your balance might change. Your center of gravity might change. Estrogen is also anti-inflammatory. So you might have had these niggles for 40 or 50 years, and then you progress through. I don't know what that was. I just got noise in my ear. So estrogen being anti-inflammatory, you go through menopause, you no longer have that. You've had these niggles for 100 years, but you feel them harder now. They hurt more because you've lost that anti-inflammatory benefit from estrogen. So, my first tip, if you're going to train groups of midlife women, it's to keep the program obscenely simple. And if you're worried about boredom, I'll get to that at the end of this. But, you might do 7 years of the same program: squats, push ups, lat pull down lunges, right? That's the program. And you do it forever. But out of 10 women attending, you've got a frozen shoulder, a lower back pain, plantar fasciitis, knee pain, hip pain, arthritis in the hands, right? So when the program is obscenely simple and the client understands what a squat is, if she has shoulder, you just change the tools. Like maybe she holds dumbbells by her side instead of doing a back squat. Maybe you squat deep for range. Okay, you're doing like squat to haunches. If she has low back pain, then you're just moving her pain-free range, right? If she has plantar fasciitis, um, foam roll her feet first, stretch her calves first, see if that helps, or just put her in a machine and do a leg extension. It is one of those times where I will give a machine or an isolation exercise. If they have knee pain, again, do pain-free range. See if wider stance helps. See if toes turned out helps. If it still hurts, put her on a leg press. If it still hurts, give her a deadlift, something that doesn't bend the knee. If she has hip pain, then release the inner thigh first. Do pain-free range, or again, try the different foot positions. But what happens is, if she has arthritis in her hands, maybe she can do the back squat and can't do the dumbbell squat. What happens is, they all know what a squat is by the end of their 4 weeks, right? And then they all know their modifications. So in my group sessions, I've got the program. It has 6 exercises that takes us an hour. I've then got an orange marker where I write all the modifications beside the program. And then I keep the program the same for 4 weeks. So I'm not changing it every week. I'm not keeping it interesting. It is just that, right? When you've got all those little modifications, the client starts to learn about how they can move safely in a way that doesn't hurt. And that's really powerful. That's where you start to build some momentum. So yesterday, for example, we had a back lunge. So I had the barbell on the back. We're doing sets of 5, so it's pretty heavy. I have, in my group, there were 10 women. We had 2 knee problems. We had 2 pelvic floor dysfunctions. We had lower back pain. We had 2 shoulders and 1 elbow. And all of them did a variation of the lunge. So there were probably 4 that did the standard lunge. There were two that did crouches. So that's where your knees are aligned, but your feet are staggered. It's a staggered squat. And you crouch down like a sphinx. And one was on the leg press. That's okay. And then also, like, there's half range, full range, getting down to the floor. Turning the toe out helps a lot of my knee problem and hip problem clients. When you keep the program obscenely simple, really simple, you give yourself a lot of room to modify, and you give the client a lot of power to learn the movement, understand the movement, feel better about the movement. Now, to make it interesting, I just changed the tool. So, we're going to do squats for a year. And, for 4 weeks, we'll do squats with the barbell. For 4 weeks, we'll do squats with dumbbells by your side. For 4 weeks, we'll do squats holding onto a pole, getting down to our haunches. For 4 weeks, we'll do squats with a water ball on one shoulder. For another 4 weeks, we'll do squats with a front loaded weight, like a goblet squat, like variety, but not with the squat itself. With the squat, those modifications can stay. Toes turned out, wide legs, pain-free range, heels on a step. That squat is always the same. Their modifications are often the same. And then you just change the tool they're holding for variety and to keep it interesting. So your clients will learn those modifications. And I do write them on the board, but it's mostly for myself. So I remember. Once the client's found a way to squat or lat pull down or push up without pain, they'll usually remember it. And it's super, super powerful. So that is my first thought. Kylie, I hope that helps. And if it brings up more questions. Direct message me, email me. I'm very happy to answer them. And if it's a big one like Kylie's question was, I will do a whole series on it. I'll see you next week.